Welcome to Wealthing Talks. I am your host, Alicia Castillo Holley, bringing you real-life conversations from Silicon Valley or somewhere around the world. We will talk about disruptors, angel investments, venture capital, and of course, family offices. Join me along with my children, their families, friends, disruptors, and investors as we explore the fascinating world of creating wealth in a completely different and authentic way. Well, hello again, and thank you so much for being here with us. I have the absolute pleasure to introduce Andrea Stephany to you. She is the youngest guest that I've had in my podcast. So I'm very, very happy and very international like I am. So I met her a couple of years ago. She's doing OncoSwab, and she will explain a little bit more about her and her company. Andrea, thank you so much for being here. My first question is, how did you get here? How did you get to be here?
Thank you, Alicia, for having me. You are actually, I was reflecting on this earlier today. You were the first female interviewer I have on a podcast, which is interesting. I mean, I was probably that also says something about the amount of podcasts I've been on. Not that many. I've been doing this for a couple of years, but still, I'm excited to be interviewed by not just a woman, but also a fellow Venezuelan. So those are two firsts today.
Oh, goodness.
To answer your question, how did I end up here? So my founder story doesn't begin with this company. My founder story probably begins when I was around 16 years old and I was in high school. I was born in Venezuela, but I grew up in Spain and happened to go to high school in the Canary Islands because, like you, I've moved around a lot. And I remember being in high school daydreaming about one day being a scientist, but also starting my own company, hopefully in science, whatever that meant at 16 years old. I literally had no clue. One of the reasons why I'm very passionate about being on podcasts like this is that when I was, that 16-year-old daydreaming about doing what I'm doing now, is that there were zero role models for me to look up to, like none. No role models, like young women in biotech starting their own companies. So, nevertheless, that was me thinking about how I could one day eventually become the dream of being a startup founder in this space. I thought that that implied, going to school, getting a PhD, working a lot in the industry, getting a name for myself. And once I am respected one day, when the perfect moment comes, then I start my own company. But of course, there's no such thing as a perfect moment. So I just went ahead and actually I tried to start two startups before this one. Obviously, they didn't go anywhere. And the reason was one was a very sound um, idea that made a lot of sense from a business perspective, but I wasn't passionate about. So, of course, that doesn't go anywhere. And the other one was something that I was extremely passionate about, but there was no way to make money. So, they didn't go anywhere. I decided to still start companies, but in a smaller scale. So I started two companies all in the science communication industry. And as I was doing that, it's a combination of things, right? And you said that I'm the youngest guest. This is all happening in like a very short amount of time. So I've lived like many lives, even though I'm young. At some point when I'm 24, I was selected to be part of this hackathon that the European Union organized. And this was the top 100 young scientists all across Europe to come together and think about how to solve the world's biggest problems in a weekend, very, very casually. And I'm like, cool, all right, I can do that. So I show up there. And again, I'm already thinking about potentially starting my own company one day. And what I do is I try to bring all of the problems that I'm experiencing in the healthcare problems as a market need, right? And combine that with the things I was learning at the hackathon about starting startups. And also considering that this was going to be a room full of people that are as excited as I was and as ambitious as I was, hopefully. And that's exactly what happened. I met my co-founder, Pablo. We've been working together for 2.5 years. And I could not have gone any luckier. It's crazy that we met like on a random weekend in the Netherlands. And then we also found our startup idea, which is now OncoSwab. the idea is pretty straightforward. So set the scene, late 2022, COVID pretty much was ending, but was still very prevalent at that moment. We realized that when we want to, when there's a need and when there's ease, it's very, very easy to get people tested. Like COVID got everyone we know and their mothers tested for it.
Yeah.
What are their success factors? And most importantly, how can we prevent the momentum from dying? What are other diseases that are in desperate need of ease of detection and that a similar model can be applied to? For us, the obvious answer was lung cancer. And that's exactly what we did. We said, okay, let's build a COVID test for lung cancer. Started as a hackathon idea, and now it's a company that's running multi-center clinical trials that is in agreements with huge hospitals like the Mayo Clinic, supported by investors and even the Swiss government. So quite a bit of a ride, completely unexpected when we were doing that hackathon, but I hope that answers the question as to how I got here.
Yeah. Well, and how did you get to San Francisco?
And how I got to San Francisco. Wow. Well, so there's a different part of the story, right? So we're building the company. We decided we want to pursue this now dream we have. Bear in mind, I grew up in Europe. Like I love Europe. I never thought about leaving Europe. I was like, I have everything I need here. Why would I ever leave? Until I decided to do something as crazy as what we're doing. And in my mind, if you had asked me, I would have been like, Europe is so straightforward and not straightforward. Europe is very groundbreaking when it comes to research and science. So what better place to to build new groundbreaking technology like this? At that point, I was still thinking as a scientist. I didn't know that to run a company, you need a lot more than good science. In fact, I would say science is maybe 20% of it.
Yeah.
So as I went out to look for supporters, I realized that Europe, unfortunately, was not the right place to bring something to life, especially when it sounded like such a moonshot, like what we were trying to do. The conversations look something like this. Hi, how are you? I am Andrea. I'm 24, just finished my master's. I had this idea. I think that you can stick a swab up your nose and find cancer mutations. What do you think? Of course, everyone was like, but like, do you have any evidence this works? And I'm like, no, but here is the solid biological mechanism as to how this would work. Oh, do you have any evidence? No. But
That's why I'm raising money.
but if you give me some money, I can actually make it happen. Or at least we can try to see if it works. I mean, there's no guarantee it will work or not, but if it works, it could be huge, it could be massive.
Okay.
And then we're like, I remember talking to the German government because they have a program to bring science into life, and they fund the research for the first year and the fund the business execution. I was like, this is perfect. Like we're perfect for that program. And I was talking to them, very hopeful. I was like, these are our people. And they were like, cool, go do a PhD. Do a PhD, prove that it works, and then you can commercialize it. And I was like, you don't understand. I need 6 months. I don't need 4 years.
Yeah.
If I wait 4 years, someone else is going to do it. Someone else is probably right now thinking about the exact same thing we're thinking. The moment is now. So I realized Europe was not the option, unfortunately. Got on a plane, went to New York first because I did my semester abroad in New York. So I was like, I know, like when I went to New York is when I decided I was going to be a founder no matter what, because I saw that in America, if you have an idea, you just make it happen.
You
Like you
make it.
have the opportunity. You have the opportunity. You have to. It's just people are more used to backing bold or crazier ideas. And that's what we found. I started having conversation after conversation, intro after intro, conference after conference, and realized that instead of being confronted with the question, but does it work and do you have a PhD? The question was rather, how much money have you raised?
Yeah.
Which to me was crazy. I was like, what does that mean? So that's how I ended up in San Francisco.
That is so awesome. I remember meeting you before you were leaving here. You were coming
Yeah.
here and we were talking about, well, is it here? Is it there? What are the pros and the cons? And how has the last year been for you?
Wild. Absolutely wild. Well, let's say I haven't been in SF for a year yet, actually. I moved in September and it's June now. So it's been however many months, it'll be a year in September, but not there yet. And it's crazy how fruitful it's been. The past year has been probably, I will say, if we incorporate the company March 2023 and it's now June 2025, the first year and a bit was horrible. not gonna lie. It was truly dreadful. It was terrible. In terms of you're fighting so hard for something for so little reward. Like the traction you get at the beginning and the support you get is so limited, yet you're dying for the breadcrumbs. Like that to me at that moment felt like enough because just the fact that anyone was paying attention to anything that was coming out of my mouth was incredible, you know? Whereas it got to a point where obviously the data helped, like the scientific data, but also the support from more legitimate partners and hospitals, having hospitals on board. After all of those things started coming together, everything just started rolling like a snowball. So in the past year alone, we started a clinical study with 6 hospitals now in Europe. We got a $1.3 million grant from the Swiss government, from InnoSwiss. We signed an agreement with the Mayo Clinic to expand the technology and commercialize our current technology. And we've raised like total funding today, dilutive and non-dilutive, is over $2 million. And that has been pretty much in the last year alone. So yeah, now things are like, wow. My co-founder and I joke about sometimes we're complaining about, not complaining, but more like talking about the problems we have. Like we need to sign this agreement, we need to send this document to the lawyers, we like all these big problems, and we're like, you know what? We can never complain about this because these are real company problems. Like before
Yeah,
we had
yeah.
very different problems.
That is so cool. It's so refreshing to hear somebody talk about the problems like they're daily occurrences in a startup, and in any company for that matters. It's so realistic, especially in San Francisco or in Silicon Valley, where you hear a lot of people say, "No, this is so easy. This is so easy." Well, it is not that easy, but it's still worth it. So yeah, gives
It's
you
totally worth it.
yeah. So what keeps you alive? What makes you? So a lot of people ask, what keeps you awake at night? And I don't like to talk about the problems and the pains. I like to talk about what inspires you, what makes you get up in the morning and say, I can't believe I have another day to live.
Yeah.
I can build this dream.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, like for example, this morning, my co-founder and I were building this very long roadmap, like year by year, quarter by quarter, from here to 2030.
Okay.
So imagine it's like a very long roadmap. And honestly, we were like two kids in a candy store, like thinking that we're building something from absolute scratch that will revolutionize the way we see lung cancer for good, hopefully. And the fact that we can just truly trace it and map it out so far ahead makes me feel not only like this is not a dream, it's a plan, but also makes me feel like we've learned a lot throughout the process. Because if I had to do a 5 year long roadmap last year, I would not have, it would have been just words, because
Yeah.
we understand the space so much better now. We understand the regulations and the nuances so much more now, that we are capable of seeing, of exactly saying, okay, this is how the next 5 years are going to look like. Bear in mind, we're going to go see that roadmap maybe 6 months from now. We're going to laugh, we're going to be like, this makes absolutely no sense, but at least we have a better understanding. So what wakes me up at night and makes me be excited is to realize that we're building something that we know is going to be impactful, and then we get to take those plans and talk to our doctors in the trial, or our advisors that are helping with reimbursement and regulatory stuff. And uh, between everyone's expertise, put together a solid plan that makes sense. I think that has to be there. There is very little that comes close in terms of how rewarding that can be, especially feeling that, yeah, it's spearheaded by us, but it's truly, we're gathering the knowledge and expertise of dozens of people that have done this before, and we're repackaging it with our own application.
So what do you think in the future is going to happen with lung cancer? How far are you from just getting into a hospital, or where would people check it? Would people check it at home? How do you see that happening?
Okay, so there are like different answers to that question, because one thing is commercialization, and how do we, like, when will people use our product, and another thing is how do we envision the world after OncoSwab is established in the market, and how does that affect lung cancer, so the first one is, let's say, more shorter term. when do people start using this? And the answer to that is our first application is not the big vision screening everyone gets detected for it, of course, because that's a longer term plan. The first application that we are targeting is incidental pulmonary nodules, which is the situation where, let's say, you or anyone you know fall off their bikes and you want to see if you got, let's say, a rib broken or anything for that matter, and you get a CT scan done. And while doing that, there is a positive finding, meaning that there is a nodule that is found. And it sounds like very rare, but actually 15 to 20% of CT scans have positive findings. So it's pretty common. If there is a nodule that is found, something needs to be done about it. We need to either act upon it or decide that we just need to sit down and watch. Um, that is called an incidental pulmonary nodule, and it happens almost 2 million times a year in the US alone. So it's a very common problem in our healthcare system that we currently don't have the means to treat. This would be the first application of the technology, which is a risk stratification of that nodule to see if we should send you home and wait or do biopsy surgery, whatever is needed. For that, that's what our trials are focusing on right now, what our current studies are focusing on. And that will be probably another 2 years until it's realistically more broadly accepted, not broadly accepted, but broadly distributed into hospitals. That's the answer to your first question. The answer to your second question, which like really excites me, is how would the world change? And we started this company with the vision of right now, if you get lung cancer, if anyone you know gets lung cancer, unfortunately, it's really sad news. As in, you sit down and you very delicately communicate this message because you know that it's something close to a death sentence. And I hate saying that because 20 I mean there is a significant and increasing survival rate, but unfortunately because of how the disease works and how our system is built, we only detect it when it's too late. And if you remember many years ago, you could say that this was the case with HIV, for example. If
Uh-huh.
someone told you that they had HIV, it was terrible news. But look at what has happened with HIV now. Now it's like, you have HIV. Okay, that's fine. We can do something about it. I know it has absolutely nothing to do with lung cancer, but I see a lot of commonalities here. I think that we can build a world where it's so easy to detect and it's such a part of our lives to get tested for lung cancer that when you get it, because if you treat it early, there's a lot you can do, and it's definitely far from a death sentence. We create a world where if someone tells you, hey, I have lung cancer, it's like, okay, so what are you going to do next? That is what we're striving for.
Fantastic. Yeah. How far are you on that one? Like 10 years, 5 years?
No, no, not that long. According to our long roadmap, yeah, it's going to be like 5 years.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's great. Okay.
That's
Okay.
not too bad, right?
It's not that bad. It's not that bad, especially for people who have cancer or who don't know that have cancer, who might have cancer. No, that's pretty good. Are you planning on expanding that internationally, or you are going to focus on the US?
Ah,
You don't
great question. Great question. I think that's a TBD for us. More like I lean towards solely focusing on the US just because there's so much to do here. But the reason I say it's a TBD, I don't discard eventually expanding. We have such strong networks in Europe, like truly. We're highly present there, especially in Switzerland and Spain. From a research perspective only, if we wanted to commercialize, it would truly be probably easier than here just because we're already so plugged in hospitals there. But unfortunately, the lack of advancements that we were talking about for the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Europe also apply for reimbursement and commercialization for medical products. And that's the reason why so many companies like us come commercialize in the US first. So I think the best thing we can do is plant the seeds as we're doing it now so that when we are more mature and ready as a company, we can expand. But I think that it would be a huge distraction to even think about that right now.
Yeah, that's good. Any tips for entrepreneurs that might be uh, watching of any age? Is there any big lesson that you've learned that you wish you had learned before?
Yeah, many. I think the first thing that comes to mind is, I mean, if you ask me, if you ask me tomorrow, I'll probably say the biggest lesson is, and it's something completely different than what I'm
Yeah,
going to say now. But right now, I think what comes to mind is things take so freaking long. And if you are an A type person, a control freak, like I unfortunately am, you want things done yesterday. And especially if you're in healthcare, that's not how it works. Like
Yeah.
you're dealing with human lives here. You're dealing with human, like patient samples. That's something that is not under your control. And just accept it. Like I heard the phrase, it's a marathon, not a sprint, 100 billion times. I didn't care. I still had an terrible anxiety attack last year. I like was very close to burning out because of how stressed I was, and I was under a lot of pressure because I couldn't grasp the concept behind that very powerful phrase. And I think the sooner you understand that not everything is under your control, the better. You need to live a normal life as you build a big, sustainable business. I think that's the biggest lesson, but I have like a billion more to share.
So how do you balance that? Do you go for walks? Do you party? Do you travel?
Yeah,
Do
I
you,
don't party, I don't travel.
if you go dancing, you should invite me.
100%. Yes, I
Uh,
will. I will. You know what? There's weekly salsa and bachata classes at this bar called Cigar Bar, close to here, close to Jackson Square. So we should definitely go sometime.
okay, yeah. I have a group of friends who go dancing salsa on Sundays. I'll put you in touch with them because I'm always,
Nice.
yeah, yeah, they're pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, that's
Amazing.
in my garden. That's how I keep balance. And everybody
Oh,
at my garden is,
that's good.
yeah.
You're great. So to me, I said I jokingly said I don't party, don't travel. I travel for work. I should travel for leisure more. But no, how I keep balance is I integrate. It's crazy. Like I've been so close to like fully, totally burning out that I realized that taking control of my mental health and staying sane during this process is as equal as my spreadsheet where I track my investor conversations. Like I should not be treating it any differently. And if I'm very, very serious about how to treat my role as a CEO and co-founder of this company, I should also be very serious about how I treat my relationship with myself. So I integrate religiously and very strictly mindfulness moments in my day. Like I take meditation super seriously. I meditate every single day. I journal. I go for walks. I don't sacrifice sleep or exercise or eating. I meal prep every week. I make sure I eat enough food and I have all of the nutrients. I fortunately for me, I have a gym here in my the office has a gym too. So I go to gym every day. There's no
Yeah.
excuse. I go for walks. Like I really take care of my health as most as possible. So that's my way to do it. And of course there are periods where it's like a sprint where you have a deadline where you have something to do, and that is actually really cool if you are a slightly neurodivergent person like me. Like it's always fun to have those moments of bursts of energy and creativity where you can sleep less, it's fine, you can eat less, it's fine, or more, it's okay. But in general there always has to be not a balance, because that's not true. You're never going to have a fully balanced life as a founder. Like that's BS. But definitely like integrate that somehow in your life.
Yes, I think that's very important. You just reminded me of a period in my life where I would go I always walked. I walked to work. So that was a way I forced myself to walk to work. But I would spend the whole day just on coffee.
Mm.
Just on coffee because I had two kids and I'm like, it's 8 or 9. I remember one day I got back home and I had a living maid. And I said to her, I don't know why I have a headache. And
Mm.
said, maybe you are thirsty. I said, no, I drank. And, I'm like, but I don't know. I never get headaches. And it turns out I had not eaten in 2 days. Nothing,
No
no,
way, two
nothing.
days.
I was just having coffee and going here and going there and doing this and doing that. And I had my kids and we would sit down with them and had dinner with them. But while those were having dinner, I was having phone conversations. This is before we had internet at homes. Um, but that was, yeah. And then I stopped and I said, hey, I need to make sure I don't leave the house without breakfast, and I need to make sure
Mhm.
that I eat at least at night. I mean, it was a eye opener. I had not eaten in 2 days. So that, yeah. So
That is crazy.
I'm
Yeah,
glad
not eating in 2 days. That I mean, not just not eating in 2 days, not knowing that you hadn't eaten in two
I
days.
remember.
I know
Yeah.
what's worse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, we have few of those. I mean, there was one day where um, my daughter asked Fanny, "Is my mom in the country?" And Fanny said, "Yes, of course she's here." And she said, "I haven't seen my mom in 2 days or 3 days or something because I would leave around 5 in the morning, and I would get back around 9 or 10. And I would call, but I would not be home because I had too many. That's when I was starting Capital Semilla in Chile, the seed capital fund. I had 6 companies. It was crazy time. But I'm glad that we have the younger generation saying, hey, you have to take care of yourself first. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is pretty good. And figuring out, that's pretty good. I have one last,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
yes, go ahead.
no, I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
Um, have you thought about what is your legacy? What do you want to leave when you leave the world? Have you thought about it?
Well, that's so beautiful. That's such a beautiful question. I've thought about it. I mean, I haven't thought about my legacy as a like my whole lifetime, but I definitely have like something that I know is very tied to my mission is, as I said, imagine having this huge dream and being every fiber of your body knows that that's what this is what you're meant to do, but nothing in your surrounding validates that dream. And to me, like I would look up even still like my competitors, the competitors OncoSwab has, none of the leaders look like me still. And I think that it's crazy because I know literally here at my office, there's a ton of amazing female founders in the space, but it's still not it's not just not the norm. It's a rare exception. So because it's already enough for it to be so hard, or not hard, just like very different as the person who's experiencing it, my big what I want to achieve by building this company, and is one of the reasons why I try to be public and as public as possible, is for other young girls to see that there's people like me doing it, and it's not even that crazy. Not just, oh yeah, there's this one girl I know. No, no, no. Women can do this too, and young girls can do this too. Like, or young women can do this too. It's like not even a question. That is something that I want to help embedding people's minds so that they're not as surprised when they see someone like me running a company like this. That's one thing. And another thing is I never forget the fact that I was born in an island in the Caribbean. Like I don't think there's anything more random than that. Like to come how far I've come and consider that I was born in a hospital next to people that God knows where they are right now. They're maybe still in the island I was born in, fishing, getting like food for the day. I don't know. Like I was so incredibly lucky just because I was born into 2 European passports. Like that should not be the case. So one of my big dreams in life is to do something about that. And I don't know, maybe start a foundation or give back to that community, especially in my home island, to help especially girls.
Where is that island?
Margarita, come on, you know this.
I'm Margarita. No, I didn't know you were in Margarita Island. Oh
I
my God.
was born in Margarita. Isn't that super random? That's super random.
Wow. Yeah. My dad was
Yeah.
born in Trinidad, next door.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, literally neighbors. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I know that especially as not just Margariteña, someone born in that island, but also as a girl, I am very lucky. And I say a girl because this might sound crazy to people in the first world, but truly being a girl in the third world or countries like our countries in Latin America is still very different from being a boy. It's truly different. And you're treated like I remember being 8 and already thinking about like getting my nails done and going to the salon, looking pretty for the boys. Like it's something that is so embedded in the culture where the role women have in society is dramatically different from the role men have. So I've never there's I never forget those are my origins, and I would love for my legacy to be tied to giving back to the community and also hopefully helping change the way that works in our home country.
That's really great because not everybody is as fortunate as we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So with this, I am going to close this podcast with this big reflection. And it's been fantastic. I love the way you described your dream and how you became somehow unstoppable. I always think that, entrepreneurs have an inner locus of control. They don't ask themselves, can I do this? The question is, how can I do this? It's just
Mhm.
the notion of not being able, it's completely dismissed. And I like the way you frame it. Thank you so much. A pleasure having you as a guest. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us.
Thank you, Alicia.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Andrea is a typical example of a founder, entrepreneur, who is so certain that they are going to get things done, that they don't take no as a wall. They figure things out. I think being so young, she's a great role model for a lot of people. I think any age is good to believe your dreams. And I think some of her concepts and her tips were full of wisdom. See you next week. This is Alicia Castillo Holley, yours in Wealthing. Thanks for tuning in to our Wealthing Talks. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. To stay connected, visit us at wealthing.com. This is Alicia Castillo Holley, your host, and until next time, yours in Wealthing.